Hey everybody, today we're going to start talking about the passive voice. And I know that that is something completely new, completely different. So we're going to start off slow. We're going to focus on how to use it in the present tense. So the passive voice is something that your English teachers, for example, might have said in the past that you should avoid using. Well, in Germany, it's a tense that they use quite a lot. They use it to report that something is being done without the focus being on who or what is doing it. For example, we have the sentence here, Papier wird jetzt aus Altpapier gemacht. Paper is now made from recycled paper. The focus is not on who is making this paper. It is just on that it is happening. So the present tense of the passive voice is formed by using the present tense form of werden and the past participle of another verb. So over here we can see we've got the present tense form of werden as well as the past participle of another verb. So the example sentences we get here, we have Das Licht wird ausgeschaltet. Now, ausschalten was one of our vocab words, to turn off. In this case, the form of werden, wird, means that something is being done. So the light is being, the past tense of to turn off, ausgeschaltet, it is being turned off. Turned off. Sorry for my handwriting here. Trying to do this with my fingers on a tablet screen is not easy. And then underneath it we have a plural example. Bäume, so the plural of trees. Werden, so instead of is being, now it's plural. They are being. And then the past tense of schützen, to protect, geschützt, so protected. So trees are being protected. Bäume werden geschützt. So overall, it's not too complicated. You're just using the present tense form of werden and the past tense of another verb, which is very similar to the English, saying the light is being turned off versus the plural that something are being protected, for example. You can add the detail of who is performing the action if you want to. That's not the main purpose of passive voice, but it can still be done in the passive voice. You want to use the preposition von to indicate who is performing the action. And von, if you remember, is a dative preposition. So typical German sentence structure, you've got the subject, the verb, and then the second verb has to be at the end, which means that there is really one place where we can put our preposition von, which is going to be right here where I'm putting this star. So if I want to say perhaps that the light is being turned off by you, I would add right in there von. And then being dative, if it's by you, the dative form of du is dir. So das Licht wird von dir ausgeschaltet. Or if trees are being protected, maybe, again, they're being protected by you or by the group. Maybe there's a group that works to save the environment. So von being a dative preposition, instead of die Gruppe, it would become der Gruppe. Bäume werden von der Gruppe geschützt. Trees are being protected by the group. So the other example we have on our page using von, die Flaschen werden von Schülern by students zum Container gebracht. So the bottles are being brought to the recycling bin by the students. So because this is used for the focus not being on who's doing something, but just that something is being done, it's often used in German to make general statements. Like, heute wird ein Film über Recycling gezeigt. So heute, today, a film about recycling is being shown. The focus isn't on who's showing it, why it's being shown, it's just that it's happening. Since we are using the passive voice to talk about the environment in this chapter, it's something that is frequently used to say what is being done about a problem. So many things are being done to protect the environment. Here are some examples. Batterien, and because batteries are plural, we're going to use the plural form of werden. So werden jetzt gesammelt. Sammeln is to collect. So batteries werden, we have are being. Jetzt adds the now, and gesammelt at the end, collected. A singular example, recycling Papier wird benutzt. So wird, we've got a singular, so instead of are being, like for werden, now it's is being. So recycled paper is being benutzt, it's being used. Another plural example, plural Papiere, papers. Werden, since it's plural. Schon oft recycelt. So the past tense of recyceln is recycled. So papers are being, and then the oft adds the often, recycled, recycled. So papers are often being recycled. So most of those examples used the singular or plural form. So we used wird and werden in a lot of those examples, and that's because those are the most common ways that you're going to be using the passive voice to talk about one item or plural things that are being done. It can still be used to talk about other things that are being done. So we can still use the ich form, the du form, the wir form. I'm going to give you some examples of those. So here's the chart of all those present tense forms of werden as a reminder. So remember that the du and RZS form are kind of funky. We like to say that they're a wird verb because the E changes to an I for du and RZS. So for the most part, you're going to use the RZS and the Z plural form, but the ich form can still be used. For example, if you want to use ich werde, and here's one of your vocab words, schützen as geschützt, the past tense. So ich werde geschützt, I am being protected. Du wirst geholfen, so past tense of helfen. You are being helped. The RZS form, remember that could be a der, die, das, and an item. It's just an he, she, it of any kind. So es wird geschützt. It is being protected. If it was a specific item, der Wald wird geschützt. The forest is being protected. We are being helped. Wir werden geholfen. Ihr werdet geholfen. You guys, you all, yins are being helped. And then the plural like we saw in those other examples. They, or sie, or plural items, werden, they are being, we'll use geschützt again here. So they are being protected. Maybe that is die Wälder werden geschützt. The forests are being protected. So you can definitely be using the passive voice with all these other forms of werden, which I just wanted to show you. Most commonly you'll use the RZS form with wird and the Z plural form of werden. Here is the list of your unit verbs in their different tenses as well as their meaning so that you have them in one place as we make some practice sentences. So this could be a good place to pause me and fill in your note sheet with the different past tenses of these verbs. I did add the verb helfen that I just used on the previous slide here because it could be useful when we're talking about the environment. So helfen, The Präteritum is half, but the perfect is hat geholfen. So when we use helfen, we're going to use geholfen to say that something is being helped, are being helped. Finden could be useful, like finding a solution for some environmental problems. So I did add that to our list here. The Präteritum is fand. The perfect is hat gefunden. So if a solution is being found, eine Lösung wird gefunden. So these forms in the perfect are the ones that you are going to use in the passive voice. So all of these that I'm circling here. Here we have some sentence examples for you to complete in your notes. So if we're doing these in the passive voice, for example, number 1, I see the subject is der Wald, which is singular, so I'm going to treat it like an RZS. So werden is going to become wird. And then I need the past tense of erforschen, which is erforscht. Der Wald wird erforscht. Wird means is being, and we know erforschen is to explore, so the past tense is explored. The forest is being explored. And just as a reminder, if you want to add who is exploring the forest, you should add the preposition von. And because of German sentence structure, it has to come after wird. You have to have the subject, the verb, and then the extra verb, erforscht, has to be at the end. So that leaves one spot where we can fit von, and then the detail of who is doing the exploring. So let's look at number 2, die Umwelt. And then jeden Tag, werden, and verschmutzen. German rule is that time should be as soon as possible in a sentence, so jeden Tag is going to come first. The verb should always be second, so the form of werden will come second, and then we can put in the subject, which is die Umwelt. Now, die Umwelt is the environment, so it's singular. So that means that werden is going to be conjugated to wird. So jeden Tag wird die Umwelt verschmutzen, to pollute, past tense. Remember that TZT ending becomes verschmutzt. So the environment, wird, it is being verschmutzt, it is being polluted. And the jeden Tag just adds the detail of every day. We can also, again, still add the detail of who is doing the polluting. So maybe we're the ones doing the polluting. So if I want to add von, instead of wir, the dative form of wir is uns. So I would take that and add it into the sentence right before that past participle, verschmutzt. So jeden Tag wird die Umwelt von uns verschmutzt. The environment is being polluted every day by us. Nummer 3, I can have a couple words here as the subject. Plastiktüten, plastic bags, and Aludosen, aluminum cans. So if I'm going to use both of those as the subject, I'll connect it with und. So we've got Plastiktüten und Aludosen. The form of werden that we're going to use is the plural form because we have plastic bags and aluminum cans. So werden as the plural is werden. Past participle of recyceln has to be at the end, recycelt. So nicht is going to be in front of it. Plastiktüten und Aludosen werden nicht recycelt. So werden, we have are being werden. The nicht adds the not. For number 4, das Dach is the roof. The form of werden we're going to use. We have a singular roof, so werden is going to become wird. In this case, the von is being added. So I need to figure out where to put it. So I do know at the end I have to have that verb. So kaputt machen is going to go at the end. Machen, past tense is gemacht. So in between is going to be the cause. Von, by, acid rain. So we see in the list of words to use that it's der, saure, regen. Well, der, when it's dative, becomes dem, and the adjective ending after dem is en, so we had to change that. Das Dach wird von dem sauren Regen by the acid rain kaputt gemacht. So es wird, it is being kaputt gemacht, ruined, by the acid rain. Nummer 5, der Frosch, grün, werden, and retten. So our subject is der Frosch, and we're going to add the adjective grün to say the green frog. So our subject is der grüne Frosch. We added the e adjective ending there because after der and nominative, the adjective ending's in e. The form of werden is wird because it's singular, it's one green frog. And the past tense of retten is gerettet. So the green frog, wird, it is being. Gerettet is, retten is to save, so gerettet, saved. This is where you should stop for today and do some of the practice problems on Blackboard. All right, now we're going to continue with passive voice in the present tense with modal verbs. Sometimes you want to use modal verbs in your sentences to provide a little bit more detail. So here's a list of our modal verbs: dürfen, können, mögen, müssen, sollen, and wollen. So if you remember these verbs, if you want to write down their definitions, go ahead. Dürfen was to be allowed, können, to be able to, mögen, to like, müssen, to have to, sollen, should, wollen, to want. And remember the funky thing with modal verbs in the present tense? Right here, the ich, du, and er, sie, es forms, the modal verbs tend to change the vowels. So dürfen to darf, können to kann, mögen, mag, müssen drops the umlaut to muss, sollen, pretty much normal, wollen changes to an I, will, and the ich and er, sie, es forms are the same. So in passive sentences with a modal verb, we're going to use the conjugated form of the modal and move the infinitive form of werden to the end of the sentence after the past participle. So look at these examples. We have the infinitive form of werden at the end, right after the past participle, and our main verb, the second position verb that's being conjugated, is that modal verb now. So, ein neues Gesetz, a new law, soll, it should, or needs to be, the werden covers the to be, vorgeschlagen. So vorschlagen is to propose or suggest, now it's proposed. So the focus is that it should be. You could change that modal verb and maybe make it muss. So ein neues Gesetz muss vorgeschlagen werden. A new law must be proposed. Or maybe you want to use können, so we're going to use kann instead. So ein neues Gesetz kann vorgeschlagen werden. A new law can be proposed. On your note sheet, you also have the past tense and the subjunctive forms of the modal verbs. You can use these and still be in the present tense of the passive. For example, if instead of using muss, in the next example, it's the past tense musste. So instead of have to, it's had to. The werden is still be, to be. And then verbessert, the past tense improved, so the technology had to be improved first. We're still talking something that had to be done presently. So again, if I wanted to use a different verb there, maybe it's sollte. Die Technologie sollte erst verbessert werden. The technology should, past tense, first be improved. or können becomes konnte. Die Technologie konnte erst verbessert werden. The technology could first be improved. Or hypothetically könnte, it could hypothetically first be improved. So it's your choice what tense to use your modal verb in, depending on what you need. As long as you're still using the present tense form of werden at the end, your passive voice is still being present tense. So in these 5 sentence examples, we want to write them out using the modal verb müssen. Just wanted to keep it consistent if we just use one verb here, müssen. So der Müll is our subject. I'm just going to use the present tense form of müssen for all these. So der Müll is an RZS. So the RZS form of müssen is muss in the present tense. Der Müll muss wegwerfen becomes weggeworfen. And then we're going to put that infinitive form of werden at the end. So when we say it in English order, the garbage must be thrown out. Die Fenster schließen, to close the windows. Well, windows is plural, so müssen will just stay müssen. Schließen, gave you the example, the Präteritum is Schloss. The perfect is geschlossen, so we're going to use the perfect. So die Fenster müssen geschlossen werden. The windows must be closed. Der Wald schützen, to protect the forest. So der Wald is singular, so müssen would just be muss. Der Wald muss geschützt werden. The forest must be protected. Plastik recyceln, to recycle plastic. Plastic muss recycelt werden, so it must be recycled. Singular plastic, so müssen is just muss. And neue Umweltschutzgesetze vorschlagen, new environmental laws. Vorschlagen is to suggest. So neue Umweltschutzgesetze, plural laws, so we're using the plural form of müssen. Vorgeschlagen, so past tense of vorschlagen, vorgeschlagen, and werden at the end. So new environmental protection laws must, so we've got must right here, must be suggested. So I'm going to ask you to stop here for today and do some of the practice activities on Blackboard. Thank you. So today we're going to look at passive voice in the past tense, and it's not much different from the present tense at all. Instead of using the present tense form of werden, we're going to use the Präteritum form of werden, which is worden. So notice again, as usual, for Präteritum, the Ich and RZS forms are the same. Ich wurde und RZS wurde. Everything else is going to stay the same. So for when we did the examples in present tense, I put a verb like geschützt. There it goes. Geschützt at the end. So ich wurde geschützt. When it was present tense werde, it said I am being protected. Now, past tense, it's not that I am being, I was. Ich wurde geschützt. I was protected. Same thing for du. Du wurdest geschützt. So I was, you were protected. He, she, it, RZS wurde geschützt. He, she, it was protected. Plurals, instead of was, they were protected. So wir wurden geschützt, we were protected. Ihr wurdet geschützt, you guys were protected. The sie plural, sie wurden geschützt, they were protected. Note also that the focus isn't on who is protecting these people. It's just that they were protected. Remember, you can always add von in the detail of who. Maybe it's von dir, by you, by me, von mir, von der Polizei. Maybe they were protected by the police. So those are some examples how you can add that detail. This past tense form is something that is very commonly used in German to talk about events in the past, like saying that I was born in another country. Like, ich wurde nicht in Amerika geboren. I was not born in America. Also talking about historical events of the past. When did something happen? If the focus isn't on who did that thing. Here are some examples of the passive voice being used in the past. Im Jahr 2009 wurden 455 Kilogramm Müll pro Kopf weggeworfen. So in the year 2009, we see 455 kilograms of garbage per person were thrown out. So wurden was used because we're talking about 455 kilograms of garbage. That's certainly plural. So we're using the plural form of wurden. So they were. And then wegwerfen, to throw out. Past tense weggeworfen, they were thrown out. This sentence had time first because that is what the Germans prefer. So time, then verb is always second, so the subject came after it. The next one, das Wasser wurde verschmutzt. The water is singular, so that's the RCS form of wurden. So das Wasser wurde verschmutzt, the water was polluted. Here is an example where the details added who is polluting the water. In this case, it was die Fabrik, the factory. Die changed to der because von is a dative preposition. Gestern wurde viel gearbeitet. So gestern, time first, saying yesterday. A lot of work was done. And the question, when was the Berlin Wall built? So we can have when first and then was and built at the end. Wann wurde die Berliner Mauer gebaut? If I wanted to ask you, when were you born? Wann wurdest du geboren? I can add other question. Doesn't have to be when. It can be wo. Where were you born? But we're using wurdest as our form of were or was. So to finish off some practice sentences using the passive voice in the past tense. The first one, der Wald werden and erforschen. If you remember, this was the same one we had a couple days ago when we used the present tense. So instead of werden becoming wird, that would be present tense, that it is being explored. Now we're using the past tense, wurde, and singular forest, so singular form of wurden. Der Wald wurde erforscht, the forest was explored. The environment is being polluted every day was the example we had earlier for present tense. So instead of wird, we're going to use the singular past tense, wurde. Time first, verb always second, and then the subject. Jeden Tag wurde die Umwelt verschmutzt. The environment was being or was polluted every day. And then same example as before again with Plastiktüten und Aludosen. So we had plural subject that instead of werden, that they are being, where we were changing it to past tense, that they were they were not being recycled. So subject first, then our verb, then the past participle of recyclen's at the end, so nicht has to fit in between those.